It's an interesting question because when I decided to go back to school after working at a small liberal arts college in Atlanta, I was a voice major. I had got my undergraduate at University of Cincinnati in applied voice, and also a master's in vocal studies at Southern Methodist University in Dallas with a second degree, a second master's in conducting for sacred music. So I decided and was accepted and entered at Florida State University as a DMA student in voice, in applied voice, and decided that I think I want to do something a little different to at least add on to the knowledge base that I already had in that area. So I said, do I want a third degree in the same exact thing, or would I like at least be interested in taking some additional courses? So I decided, why not take the Introduction to Ethnomusicology course? I enrolled in that, and I also was in the Caribbean Steel Band and in the African Drumming Ensemble, because I knew I had an interest in African-derived musics in the New World, or in general in African and African-derived music. So I took those two courses and found that this is something. Literally a new world was brought to me and opened up for me. And we had a number of ensembles there. That was under Dale Olson, who is now retired, was the director of the ethnomusicology program there. And then shortly, within a year or two, Michael Bakken came on board. And so as a result of that, I participated in those two events, Ghanaian drumming ensemble led by Ama Adouanam, who is a member of SEM, and also with the steel pan group, and I was there for 4 or 5 years or so in both ensembles. I got a chance to perform a little bit on one occasion with the Brazilian ensemble as well. And so as a result of those experiences, I knew that I had found another area that was really a place of interest for me. And it was interesting making the shift cognitively, so to speak, from a performance discipline to one that was research-oriented, but that still allowed for performance. And that's what I liked about it. And I enjoyed working there as a TA and with an assistantship and teaching some of the intro to world music classes with the general students at the university. So that's how I got interested. It really helped a lot in the sense that Dr. Olson, who was my major professor and director of my dissertation there, his work on the Warao helped really inform a lot of the things that I was doing and had been doing until recent years on the Garifuna music in Central America, primarily in Belize, but also in other places. So I began to look at their music and spirituality. So as a result of attending his courses and having him as a major professor, then there was automatically a connection to, because I know he went to UCLA, and that's where he attended. So bringing some of the same ways or methods of approaching the discipline helped out a great deal in that sense. So it really did inform my area and my research. And it's interesting in that I became interested in the particular culture because, as I said, I was in the Caribbean Steel Band and I was in the West African Drumming Ensemble. And so I told him, I said, I'm interested in doing something that's African-derived or Afro-Caribbean. And he said, well, there was a gentleman who did a master's thesis on the Garifuna in Central America, and I don't think much has been done on them. I said, And so then I went to one of my anthropology instructors at Florida State. And he told me, well, you know, it's interesting, next month there's a conference on music, on culture in Belize, and you may be able to find someone there. So I went to the conference not knowing much. I came away with a course pack, really a bibliography of a lot of the presenters and who were at the conference and some of their topics of their papers. And from there, I began to have contacts, and I began to look on my own and read up on the culture. And I happened to be working in the mall one day, believe it or not, and a gentleman came up, and I was working in the men's clothing department as a part-time job, and a gentleman came up and said, can you help me tie this tie? And I noticed, I said, it's a Caribbean accent, where's he from? And I asked him where he was from. I said, you from Honduras? He said he's from Honduras. I said, interesting. I said, well, I'm doing some work on the Garifuna. Are you Garifuna? I am Garifuna. I was like, what? And he was the only person in the city, in Tallahassee, that was from the same cultural group that I was studying. And so we became good friends. He became my sort of teacher about the culture before I got a chance to go and do my field work. And so that happened, and it was a wonderful experience. It really was. Research and applied projects. Okay, let's start with some of the research projects, and those would be, I tried to make an effort to learn as much as I possibly could about Garifuna music and culture. And as a result of that, the initial thing was an article in the Garland Encyclopedia, when Dr. Olson and Dan Sheehy were the editors for that particular volume on Caribbean music. So they asked me to enter something on Belize, and I did that. And then afterwards, the research, I began to continue to do work on the ancestor ritual that they have. It's called Adugurahani, or Dugu. They have an ancestor veneration ritual that is about 5 days long. And I wanted to look at the role of music in the ritual and how it helped to inspire, possession or embodiment in that sense. And so I was able to go and do my dissertation research there. But initially, introducing research, I was able to write an article and everything for Center for Black Music Research, the journal, Black Music Research Journal, there, and had a fellowship there, a Rockefeller Fellowship there for 6 months. That was when Sam Floyd was alive and was the director for that center at Columbia College, Chicago. So that was early on. And then after that, another article for them on another aspect of the music, Punta Rock, on Punta music. And then a number of encyclopedia entries with Continuum Encyclopedia of Popular Music, and a couple of other encyclopedias, and then some articles through a book that was done by someone who I consider my mentor, Joe Palacio. He's an anthropologist in Belize and in Central America there. So he did something on aspects of the culture, not necessarily music all, but they had a nation across borders, and it was talking because the Garifuna culture is from Belize to Guatemala to Honduras and Nicaragua. So that's why they named it that. So I had the entry in that book on Wanaragua, which is their John Canoe version, their door-to-door procession that they do during Christmas. So I did in a chapter there, and also did a documentary film on the culture as well, on that same tradition around 2007 to 2008. And then finally, an edited volume of work, some of my things that I had previously written, and some new things, and other articles from scholars who were in Belize, and that was published by as a reader by Cognella. And so that's what I was working on. That's been the main interests and things that I've done. Those have been kind of the highlights. Currently now, I am working on, my focus has switched, and I'm working on music of the Mardi Gras Indians in New Orleans. And so that's what I'm doing now. And looking at the whole aspect of this culture and cultural tradition, which is primarily expressed from a visual aspect. Most people know it that way, but they have songs. And the music of the culture predates jazz, blues, all of that. And the characteristic rhythm, bop, 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 is the same rhythm of the second line. It is also incorporated in a lot of aspects of jazz. And it is based and related to the habanero rhythm and other things that are coming through the Caribbean. So I presented at this conference on that, and previously have a publication out now, an article in another article in Caribbean Quarterly, but this time it is on the Mardi Gras Indians. And I'm working also currently as a co-editor for a edition of Fire. Fire is a journal, a multimedia journal that is sponsored by the Association for the Study of African American life in history and life. And so that particular, I'm a guest editor and for that. So we'll be looking at the whole idea of black aesthetics and through the concept of ashe, the Yoruba concept of ashe. And so there are a number of articles and presenters from a conference that was in Atlanta 2014-15. So that's going there. In reference to applied things, quickly, when I was at Florida State, I continued with the, as I mentioned, with the drumming and Ghanaian drumming ensemble and Caribbean steel band. But joining the faculty early on in 2000, 2001 at Georgia State, I began a series of world music concerts because there was not a presence on campus of world music ensembles or performing programs. And so I began to have an annual event that was, for a number of years, was the largest attended event that you had at the university in the music area. And we packed the auditorium there, and it was a really nice event. And different groups that were around the Atlanta or southeastern United States area. Anything from Native American and a lot of those who lived in the community, Chinese ensemble, Japanese taiko, Cuban rumba, Brazilian. We had one show called Brazil in Atlanta, and we took an ensemble from school and had them to play Brazilian instruments. And we had a student there, and they performed on TV one morning. So it was nice. We had about 7 years of that, and then I had a special thing on Garifuna culture in 2007, 2008, and then since then, primarily been focusing on research things as such. Having the opportunity to do the series of world music and dance events that we had at Georgia State was very rewarding. I partnered with the Office of Intercultural Relations, and it was very, very well attended and very well appreciated on campus and in the city. I had people who would come up to me and say, "You're going to have any more of these programs?" And due to financial things, we couldn't continue and things along that line. Some of the publication efforts have been very nice, and also going to having the Rockefeller Fellowship early on, and some of those things were probably the most important things been had. I was thinking about that recently, actually, and I realized that today, with such seemingly divisiveness that exists within the country and globally, there has been a return to a level of conservatism and nationalism, not in a positive way, but in an insular type of way that promotes one ethnic group above another, or a group of people based on ethnicity or race or culture or anything above others. And I find that this particular conference, of others that I've attended, is typically the most diverse. It is the most inclusive of people's beliefs, practices, preferences along many, many different lines. I have not been to other conferences that have had this demographics of participants. And I think that's really important. And when I look at the world in which we currently exist, and here in the United States, and the challenges that we have, and if I would wish some of the people who were so narrow in their views stepped into my world, into this world, of what happens on a day-to-day basis at a conference, where you can walk into a room and any particular room, and you can see cultural representation or people talking about the value of culture from so many different groups of people. It's very powerful. It really is, because it takes you to a place or a level of appreciation that tends to not exist anymore. And it's healing. It's spiritual healing. It's culturally healing. You get a chance to appreciate that which you do not know, as opposed to being afraid of it. So many places, so much of what we exist now, politically, and I don't want to go there because it's not a matter of political views, whether liberal, conservative, or progressive, or whatever. It's not a matter of that. It's your understanding and appreciation and being able to accept the ways, the practices of other people. And when you take those blinders off and stop placing hierarchy of value of one group of people over another, that's what ethnomusicology is.